If you like to read, if you like to think, if you like to see the world differently, grab yourself a book, give this show a listen. Purple Lit Nerd gonna show you what you're missing. Welcome to the Purple Lit Nerd podcast for December the 30th, 2017 is the last show of the year. It is the second to last day of the year. Are you ready for it to be over? I know I am. Well, I'm just ready for this shit show that has been my life the past couple of months to be over with. But it's going to get better. I promise you it is going to get better. And I'm saying that just as much to myself as I am saying it to you, even though you didn't ask. I am your host, the amazingly adorable and easily distractible Rebecca Thistle, podcasting to you live-ish from my kitchen table in my house, which I call Thistledew. By the way, surprise cameo appearance from my cat. Her name is Toodles Louise Thistle. Yes, she has a middle name. I give all my animals middle names. Anyways, her name is Toodles Louise, and we call her Toodaloo. And she has her own little song. Toodaloo, Toodaloo, Toodaloo. She's giving me this, I will kill you in your sleep. Look, like cats do. But she will not get off my notes, so this is going to be a very interesting show. Oh, man, it's going to be fun. So what is it that we are talking about this week? Well, hopefully you read the title of this show, so you know we're taking a break from American Gods by Neil Gaiman. Not because it isn't awesome, but because I'm very easily distractible, and also because it's New Year's Eve. And I thought that this would be a very appropriate time to talk about the Chimes by Charles Dickens, or as the BFG calls him, Dolls Chickens. Random reference to a random book from your childhood. Anyways, so, yes, I did not realize this until I looked it up on Wikipedia, because, reasons. But Charles Dickens actually wrote 5 Christmas novellas in 6 years. I am going to attempt to extricate my notes from underneath my cat. Toodaloo, can I have my notes? Okay, you can still lay down. I will still love on you. I just need my notes. Thank you. She's such a good kitty. She's so patient. Okay, so, first and foremost is A Christmas Carol. Obviously the most well-known of his Christmas novels, or novellas. And that was in 1843. In 1844, we have this one that I'm about to talk about called The Chimes. In 1845, we have The Cricket on the Hearth, or And the Hearth. I assume it's On the Hearth, because that makes more sense. And I didn't write it down properly. So, I'm a horrible note taker. I rely way too much on my own memory. But that was 1845. In 1846, we had The Battle for Life. And in 1848, because apparently he wasn't doing Christmas stuff in 1847, we have The Haunted Man and the Ghosts Bargain. I was looking at that word and I was like, the Ghost's Dragon? What does it say, the Ghost Dragon? Oh, Bargain. Anyway, so that was 1848. Now, one of the things that I learned in my Wikipedia research is that part of the reason that Chuck, as I like to call him in my head, I'm sure his soul, wherever it may be, does not appreciate that. Chuck, was the epitome of Victorian English writing, right? And so in Victorian times, the mid to late 1800s, we had this sort of, I don't want to say revival of Christmas, because, Christmas never went away. If you know anything about winter holidays, you know they've been around since civilization started. Various theological beliefs systems have defined, you have like Saturnalia in Rome, Yule in northern Europe, and etc., etc. So there's always been holiday, but in England, English society, and eventually and consequently American society in the Victorian mid-1800s, there was this sort of drive to define what proper Christmas traditions would be like. So things like the Christmas tree and, a Christmas goose or turkey or ham, or, the big Christmas meat that you eat, getting together with family, exchanging gifts and games, and those sort of traditions, and a lot of the carols came about in this time and helped along in part by Charles Dickens. So why are we talking about New Year's Eve? Why, New Year's Eve and all that. Why this? Well, I want to point you to the 12 Days of Christmas. Okay, the 12 Days of Christmas. When I was growing up, I always thought it was like, the 12 Days of Christmas basically started on like December 13th and went up to, and climaxed on December 25th. Actually, the 12 Days of Christmas begins on December 26th and climaxes on January 6th. So that is, that's 12 days between Christmas and Epiphany, which is the celebration of the three wise men finding Christ and giving him gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and that story. And so you sort of like act out the nativity and all that between those 12 days. That's what the 12 Days of Christmas. So that's why the Chimes, even though it's technically about New Year's and new beginnings and new perspectives and so on and so forth, it is technically a Christmas story because it's within that 12 days. Maybe next year I'll track down the other three lesser known novellas and talk about them. So, yes. So that's kind of the background on the context for this. So what is the story about? Well, it's almost, in a lot of ways, it's actually almost exactly like A Christmas Carol, but for New Year's. Almost beat for beat for beat. In a lot of ways, except instead of three spirits of Christmas coming to visit him and haunt him, he has one spirit of one child kind of guide him through this story. So it's about this guy. It's been a few weeks since I listened to this, so you'll have to forgive me. I forgot his name. I forgot his last name. His first name, they call him Trotty. So what he is he's an impoverished man, a single father, actually. His daughter is full grown. I want to say about 18 or so, give or take. And he's impoverished, and the way that he earns a little bit of money here and there is by running messages for people who pay him to run messages. But Trotty, and they call him Trotty because even though he's really old, he tends to trot along and seems to be in good spirits. So this starts on New Year's Eve, and he's trotting along, and he gets send a message from an alderman to a lord, and anyways, long story short, basically they serve to demonstrate kind of the similar but different views that rich people had of poor people at the time. And so there's a lot of like dialogue in these sections that you're just sitting there going, well, that's really unnatural. Like, why? Who talks like that in regular conversation? But this is Charles Dickens. He had a story to tell, and if I'm not mistaken, he got paid by the page, if not by the word. So he comes away from delivering this message from one affluent person to another affluent person, who both take time to talk a bunch of shit about poor people and how they're a disease and how they should be treated. One person is like, let's stomp on them because they're basically ants. The other one is, let's pander to them, but the instant that they make me mad, I'll send them to the alderman who wants to stamp on them. So he comes away from this thinking like, oh my gosh, all poor people are just inherently bad. And he goes back home and his daughter says, hey, I'm getting married to this guy. He's really awesome. And Trotty is trying to be supportive, but he's losing his daughter, in a way. And it's a little devastating. But then he picks up the paper and he reads a story about a woman who kills both herself and her child. They were living in poverty and she couldn't take it anymore, and and so he goes, oh, these rich people must all be right about poor people. We're a blight and we're horrible, and how could anybody be driven to that sort of disgrace and blah 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 blah. So one of the characteristics of Trotty that I have failed to mention is his identification with and love for the church chimes that he hears in the tower close to his, for want of a better word, house, hovel, whatever. So as soon as he's just decided that, there's no hope for poor people and they're all just terrible, they make terrible decisions because they're a blight on society sort of thing, the chimes start chiming and he feels like they're talking to him. So on a whim he goes to the bell tower where he finds that the chimes have been possessed by goblins or transformed into goblins or something, and they sort of take him through this hypothetical situation where he dies that night, and then he gets to see what happens to his daughter after that, and how she does everything she can to support herself and eventually her child, and she is turned away time and time again because she's a single mother and she is poor, and people have this idea of, oh, therefore she must be a bad person. And so anyways, the ultimate message that he gets, of course it all ends up being a dream, and he comes round the next day going, hooray! Everybody's happy, let's get, let's marry you off on New Year's Day, new beginnings, and let's not judge each other, and, everybody's still living in this shithole of poverty, but we're all going to work together in great humanity. And then, of course, Dickens ends it in a very Dickensian way where he says, do you really like that ending?